Discover the incredible journey of a black woman, transformed by Jiu-Jitsu. In 14 seconds, she shatters the glass ceiling into her own power. Jasmine wiped the grease from the corner of her mouth, eyeing the diner's neon clock. Another long shift stretched out ahead of her. The small Midwestern town felt suffocating sometimes, each slow hour scraping against her dreams. As an African-American woman with aspirations bigger than the confines of her waitress apron, she fought a persistent heaviness anchored to the past. Family first. This taught her parents, this she endured. Yet each day servicing rude patrons blurred the lines between hope for something greater and the crushing weight of reality. Jasmine's pulse quickened at the familiar sound of derisive laughter from a table of men, their jabs simple yet razor-sharp, each one settling into her skin like splinters. She longed to break free, to scream away the weight of expectation, her mother's sacrifices, the relentless cycle of their lives. Every snide comment served as a reminder of systemic barriers she could never seem to outrun. Her mind raced, intertwining self-doubt with determination, as she balanced trays over her shoulder, spurred on by thoughts of a better life, one that felt impossibly out of reach, yet tantalizingly close. In the chaos, Jasmine found herself falling into routine, these four walls and their limitations swallowing her whole. But one flicker of light emerged after an unending day. A flyer tacked on the diner's bulletin board that read, "Jiu-Jitsu, find strength within." When she stepped into the dojo for the first time, the air was thick with potential. She embraced the unfamiliarity, rolling on mats that felt like an antidote. The tension of daily life slipped away, replaced by a visceral connection to her body, to herself. But as she trained, reality crept back in. She was the only black woman in the room, met with reluctant glances and veiled comments. Each practice was a battle against her opponents and against the discomfort of exclusion. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every spar, with every roll, Jasmine channeled emotions from her past, building resilience, but also doubt. After a crushing loss in her first tournament, the fear of failure threatened to smother her. In moments of solitude, her breath tightened, the very thought of returning to the dojo, to the tight-knit community, paralyzing her resolve. Had she sacrificed so much only to face rejection? Could she silence the voices echoing that she didn't belong? As the gym buzzed around her, Jasmine felt second-guessing shift to conviction, creating a chasm between what she wanted and what she had become. Yet the pressure mounted, and her internal struggle spiraled into a suffocating darkness. Everything she fought for resonated like a distant memory. As she prepared for the championship, her heart raced with conflicting emotions. Anxious energy wrestled alongside determination, leaving her feeling frail before the world. The day she walked onto the mat, an unseen weight latched onto her chest, each heartbeat heavy with uncontained dread. She didn't just face an opponent, she confronted her past, her fears, the ceaseless whisper of inadequacy. 14 seconds ticked down like a countdown, tension mounting as she wrestled with the promise of her own potential. Would she embrace the gravity of expectation or falter under the spotlight of scrutiny? In those fleeting moments, it all became crystal clear. The stakes had never been higher. The world held its breath, awaiting an answer that only she could give. Jasmine felt the heat radiating from the mat, the energy in the room intensifying as her opponent awaited her. A bead of sweat trickled down her temple. She clenched her fists, grounding herself amidst the chaos. This was more than a fight. It was about her identity, her worth. With each second passing, the cacophony of doubts began to rise. What if she faltered? What if this moment defined her? The whistle pierced the tension and they lunged at each other. Instinct took over, igniting a fire within her. She escaped a takedown, countering with a swift roll that surprised both her opponent and herself. In those moments of battle, feeling the power of her body respond as she trained became her sanctuary. Each movement echoed the hours spent on the mats, a culmination of sweat and struggle. For a fleeting instant, she felt untouchable, personifying strength and resilience. Yet as she rolled, the voice of her opponent, a past version of herself, whispered faintly, "Remember when you were just a girl who didn't belong?" The question lingered, threatening to tether her back to that insecurity. Jasmine pushed it down, driving through her opponent's guard. A reversal move brought the fight to an exhilarating level. Adrenaline surged through her as she pinned her adversary momentarily, proving her worth. But one mistake, a slight lapse in focus, sent her tumbling. Her opponent exploited the opening, swiftly reshaping the dynamics of the match. Jasmine now found herself fighting from beneath, the weight of failure bearing down as her heartbeat reverberated through her ears. Getting pinned wasn't merely a tactical setback, it felt like a betrayal of her dreams. "Get up, Jasmine!" She imagined her coach's voice ringing in her mind. Would he see the determination etched into her spirit, or the fear that threatened to drown her? It felt as though the dojo had grown silent, the victory someone else's. Was this where her journey would end, at the hands of defeat and an oppressive history? Then amidst the fog of despair, a flicker of clarity ignited. She had fought too hard to give in. Everything she wanted lay within her reach. She just had to believe it again. A surge of energy coursed through her, igniting a savage resolve. Flipping her opponent, she gained the advantage back, executing escape techniques fluidly. This was home, the mat under her, the fight within her. As the finishing whistle blew, she collapsed onto the mat, heart still racing. In that moment, Jasmine felt a deep swell of gratitude for the lessons learned through loss, for the courage to confront the challenges that lay ahead, and for the knowledge of her own strength. She hadn't just faced her opponent, she had faced her fears, and in doing so, found the power she had long sought. The gym roared to life, but Jasmine barely heard it. Instead, she allowed herself to feel. The victory, however immediate, felt secondary to the transformation she had undergone. Yet with each congratulatory pat on her back, a gnawing question lingered. Had this match secured her place among the fighters, or was there still more to prove? In the following days, her official brackets were released, and Jasmine found herself scanning the names. A chilling realization surfaced. She would face the reigning champion in the next round, a formidable opponent who had never lost. Her heart raced, a conflicting pulse of excitement and dread. This would put everything on the line, testing every ounce of her growth. The moment had arrived where Jasmine would confront her own limits. Could she rise to the occasion, not just to win, but to truly transform? The stakes felt insurmountable, her determination rising with every heartbeat. She understood that all her struggles led to this, and she was ready. But first, the shadow of doubt whispered its challenge, forcing her to reckon with the prospect of failure once again. The next chapter of her journey lay just ahead. Would she become a champion, or would the weight of expectation shatter her resolve? Only time would tell. Jasmine sat in her usual spot in the dojo, the scent of sweat and determination wafting through the air, as she mentally prepared for the challenge ahead. The impending match against the reigning champion loomed larger than any adversary she had faced before. It wasn't merely an encounter on the mat, it represented the crux of everything she'd worked for, the culmination of years spent grappling with both physical opponents and personal demons. Across the room, her training partners threw crisp punches and rapid kicks, their bodies glistening under the fluorescent lights. Each thud of footfalls hitting the mat echoed Jasmine's own internal rhythm. a beat of anticipation laced with a shroud of anxiety. Should she really believe in herself and the progress she made? The struggle against her previous self felt like a continual battle, one she had not completely won. Gradually, her reflections morphed into a montage. The night her coach had first introduced her to Jiu-Jitsu, the way the world felt different when she first rolled onto the mat, the shy girl who had tucked herself into corners, afraid to step into the spotlight. Was this unfiltered growth merely an illusion, a fleeting victory over her own self-doubt? Each memory buzzed with a sense of urgency, as if demanding her to recognize how far she had come. It was with this focus that she began rehearsing key techniques, her mind racing through possible scenarios. She envisioned the champion's strengths, navigating the potential counters with each calculated move in her mind. There was a reassurance that accompanied this preparation, yet the specter of doubt still loomed ominously, taunting her, painting visions of what would happen if she failed. Jasmine inhaled deeply, allowing the freshness of the moment to settle her instincts, encapsulating her determination. "I came here to learn, not just to win," she reminded herself, but the truth was undeniable. Winning felt like a validation of her journey, a stronghold against the implications of failure. The stakes ignited a ferocity within her as her heart beat with fierce urgency. With a growing certainty, Jasmine summoned her coach to her side. "Can you help me analyze the champion's matches? I want to understand her tactics better." The directness in her request surprised even herself. She craved knowledge, yearned to dissect what others so easily taxed as superior. Each tactic gleaned would empower her, sewn into the fabric of her strategy, shifting the narrative from uncertainty to assertiveness. "You're already ahead of the curve," her coach remarked, "but remember, the fight is as much mental as it is physical. You need to anticipate her every move, but not let the fear of her victory cloud your own." Jasmine nodded, absorbing his words. They were not merely advice, they were pillars propping up her self-belief. The conversation fueled her with a sense of purpose. No longer was she just a contender. She was active, an agent of her own fate. Weeks of grappling with her past melted into this pivotal moment. The essence of her struggle solidified into an ironclad resolve. This was not merely about winning or losing. Jasmine would transcend her circumstances, turning them into the very stepping stones toward recognition. Yet, even focused preparation couldn't mask the oncoming tide of anxiety that threatened to engulf her. On the mat, everything turned into a high-stakes chess game, a dance of strategy and skill, one that tested more than her physical capacity. The anticipation echoed like a drumbeat inside her chest. As the day of the match approached, Jasmine stood before the mirror, staring at her own reflection. The girl who once felt inadequate was slowly morphing into a warrior ready to fight. But the question remained, could she craft her identity as a champion, not just for herself, but against the wild hollowness of expectations? With the competition looming, her heart raced once more. This was not just an opportunity to prove herself, it was a chance to redefine who she was, to crystallize her strength in the face of adversity. The time had come to face not just an opponent, but the uncertainty that always loomed large within her mind. Would she rise above, or would she succumb to the weight of not only the match, but also her aspirations? The battle awaited, one that transcended the physical realm, diving straight into the deepest recesses of her identity. As the final days dwindled toward the match, Jasmine's routine transformed into a tenacious blend of physical conditioning and mental fortitude. Each day felt like a tightly wound spring, coiling with potential energy, waiting for release. She entered the dojo with purpose, her eyes sharp, her movements precise, yet inside, the whirlwind of anxiety twisted and turned. After an intense sparring session, Jasmine flopped onto the mat, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding like a drum in a storm. The exhaustion was palpable, yet she struggled against the wave of discontent that surged through her. It was not the fatigue that bothered her. It was a gnawing sense that she had yet to confront the strongest opponent in her arena, herself. Flashes of her training danced through her mind. Was she imposing enough? Did she project the presence of a champion? Each moment was accompanied by echoes of past failures, setbacks that anchored her spirit with chains of doubt. Her journey was marked with small victories, but the thought of standing beneath harsh lights, exposed before peers and opponents alike, was daunting. It burned within her, a flicker of shame intertwined with the flicker of hope. Determined to unravel this inner grotesque, she sought solace in her coach's office. She found him jotting notes on an oversized whiteboard, a map of tactics sprawled before him. The sight ignited a flicker of bravery within Jasmine. "Can we talk about mindset?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "I keep practicing, but the fear always seems to overshadow my confidence." Her coach looked up, a knowing glimmer in his eyes. "Fear is a part of the game, Jasmine. How you respond to it determines your path. You have the skill. It's about trusting in yourself. Imagine every match, every opponent, is a reflection of the struggle within. If you can conquer that fear, you'll dominate the mat, but it takes resilience." He paused, watching her absorb his words. "Each time you step onto the mat, visualize yourself not just competing, but thriving. You're not just pushing against an opponent, you're breaking through barriers you've set for yourself." The notion struck her with clarity. Jasmine realized that her struggles had birthed resilience in her, a quality that transcended competition. She had spent years in the dojo, building her skill set and understanding the nuances of Jiu-Jitsu. Yet the last frontier was unlocking her mental strength, turning her self-doubt into pure, unyielding resolve. "Okay," Jasmine replied, desire carving its way into her voice. "I will visualize my strength, not just of the body, but of my spirit." The conversation sparked a fire in her. The internal weight grew lighter. With renewed determination, she dedicated the latter part of her training into strengthening this burgeoning mindset. Each practice became a session of liberation, where she learned to mold her anxiety into focus. She started adopting mantras that whispered in her mind, urging her to rise above and embrace her identity as a fighter, a champion yet to be defined by her moments of fear, but defined instead by her responses to those fears. As match day dawned, Jasmine stood before the mirror once more. This time the reflection stared back with confidence. She was no longer a shadow of her former self, but a construct of strength and mastery. Yet the lingering questions offered new challenges. Could she maintain her composure under dazzling lights? In what moment would she truly confront her demons on the mat? All this built to a critical moment. The moment of truth was at hand, and the answer lay just beyond the horizon. When she stepped into the arena, it was not just the opponent waiting at the other end. It was her transformation, her true self, preparing to emerge. Would she seize the moment, or would she falter beneath the weight of expectations? With the air thick with tension, Jasmine took a deep breath, ready to step into the unknown. The unfolding battle was as much hers to win as it was her moment of reckoning, and only then would she truly know the power she had forged within herself. The mat awaited, but so did her destiny. And in that space between fight or flight, the real question loomed. Would she finally embrace the champion she had always desired to be, or would hesitation shadow her journey? The answer awaited at the cusp of confrontation. The bright lights blazed overhead as Jasmine stepped onto the mat, each beam like a spotlight honing in on her deepest vulnerabilities. She could hear the murmur of the crowd around her, a mere low hum against the flurry of thoughts racing through her mind. The fear she had grappled with was palpable, yet something had shifted within her. The mantra she had embraced transformed into a clarion call, urging her to rise. As her opponent approached, a lithe figure with an air of confidence, Jasmine confronted the familiar knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. She had envisioned countless scenarios, rehearsed responses in her mind, yet now faced with the tangible reality, self-doubt clawed at the edges of her temper. Would this moment define her? Would she rise or fall? It seemed like the stakes were insurmountable, but in the shadow of her fears lay a burgeoning sense of power, a reflection of the transformation she had undergone. Awareness flooded her. Each day leading to this point wasn't merely preparation for combat. It had been a pilgrimage toward inner strength. The countless hours spent refining her technique, achieving small victories during training, built the foundation upon which she now stood. She envisioned herself as her coach had instructed, not just a competitor, but a warrior. As the referee signaled the start, Jasmine moved with a fluidity she hadn't felt before. There was grace in her technique, every grip and transition showcasing the mastery she had cultivated. Yet with every successful maneuver, a flicker of doubt loomed. Could she maintain this momentum? The crowd erupted in cheers, yet Jasmine cocooned herself in silence, narrowing her focus to the battle at hand. Time was a strange companion, warping around her as she executed a series of carefully planned moves. It was intoxicating and terrifying, every shift on the mat a reminder that she was finally confronting not just her opponent, but the shards of herself that had often seemed irreparable. She felt buoyed by the weight of her teammates' support, their belief fortifying her resolve. When she found herself trapped in her opponent's hold, panic surged. The sensations surged like a wave crashing over her, but Jasmine recalled the wisdom shared by her coach. The real fight lay within. With newfound clarity, she breathed, allowing the anxiety to dissolve. She didn't just wish to escape, she sought to learn and adapt. The moment became an opportunity for growth, not just survival. It was this realization that fueled her next move. Channeling her energy, she shifted her body weight, using her opponent's grip against them. Suddenly, the tide turned. In a matter of seconds, Jasmine executed a flawless technique, flipping her opponent onto the mat, a feat she had once deemed improbable. The gasps echoed around her, but she hardly noticed, submerged in the euphoria of her competence. Yet her moment of triumph didn't erase the challenges that lay ahead. With the first match behind her, Jasmine knew each victory would only sharpen the intensity of her journey. She had begun to emerge not just as a fighter, but as a resilient individual, stitched together with threads of empowerment and self-discovery. But this was just the beginning. The struggle ahead seemed laden with uncertainty. As she stood victorious for just a moment, the weight of expectations loomed again, heavy and persistent. The cheers of the crowd faded into a drone, and a single thought loomed large in her mind. The road to mastery had only begun. The next match awaited, a challenge that would test the depths of her renewed spirit and unveil further layers of herself. With the heart racing, Jasmine prepared to step back onto the mat for her next battle. Would she continue to wield her newfound mindset like a shield against the fears lingering in the background? Or would she succumb to the pressure of high stakes and expectations? The arena was more than a stage. It was an arena for her continuing transformation, and the real confrontation was still to come. The countdown began, echoing in Jasmine's ears, a metronome ticking away the seconds that separated her from her next challenge. As she stepped onto the mat again, the noise of the crowd faded further into the background, swallowed by deep breaths that steadied her racing heart. This time felt different. The hint of adrenaline surged through her, but it was accompanied by a sense of purpose. Today, she wouldn't merely compete. She would embody everything she had trained for, everything she had learned about herself in those countless afternoons spent grappling with her own limitations. The opponent, across from her, mirrored aspects of her journey. Fierce determination, unwavering focus, and perhaps the same underlying fears. The gesture of acknowledgement before the match began felt sacred. It was a silent promise to herself that she would face whatever came next as fully as she could. The referee signaled once more, and Jasmine moved with intention, each step purposeful, each motion an expression of her growth. Flashes of doubt flitted at the corners of her consciousness, but she pushed them aside. She had confronted those shadows before. Maintaining her composure was vital. She understood now that confidence wasn't the absence of fear, but the conscious decision to act in spite of it. As she entered the fray, the tempo of the match quickened. Her movements, honed through rigorous practice, became instinctual. She recalled the lessons, the hours spent drilling techniques, the sweeps, the escapes, the counters. Each maneuver she executed was the result of deliberate thought, intertwined with reflex, a marriage of mind and muscle that gave her an unexpected thrill. Yet there was something more profound brewing beneath the surface, a realization that the battle was not just to prevail over her opponent, but to surpass her past self. When her opponent attempted a sweep, Jasmine felt a rush of panic for just a heartbeat, but it ignited a spark of clarity in her. Instead of retreating, she embraced the moment, employing another technique, one that had felt precarious during training. The shift in perspective transformed the flow of the match, with her bodies dancing on the mat as she maneuvered herself into an advantageous position. With every second, she felt the layers of her self-doubt peel away, revealing an essence that craved more than just success. She yearned for mastery over her own narrative. The tension within her eased, replaced by a calm resolve as she executed a series of carefully crafted techniques, each one reinforcing her conviction. She wasn't merely striving to win, she was building a narrative of resilience, transforming the mat into her canvas. But as the match pressed on, challenges arose. Fatigue threatened to overwhelm her as the pace quickened. The opponent was relentless, and every grip became a calculated risk, weighing her strength against the pressure from above. It was an internal storm, balancing the desire to push through against the very real sensation of physical limits. The critical confrontation inside her was palpable, combining instinct with sheer will. In the final moments of the match, Jasmine found herself cornered, grappling for a way out. For a painful stretch, her breath caught in her throat like iron. Panic rose anew, yet within that tension, a surge of clarity crystallized. This was where she had to reclaim her narrative. Gritting her teeth, Jasmine orchestrated one last counter, her body acting as one cohesive unit. As she flipped her opponent with newfound ferocity, the mat absorbed her momentum, a solid affirmation of her commitment to growth. When the match concluded, it wasn't victory that dominated her thoughts, but a deeper awareness of her evolving self. She had wrestled not just with her opponent, but with the very core of her identity. The crowd's cheers echoed like distant thunder, but Jasmine stood still in that moment of triumph. She had crossed a threshold. The woman she was and the woman she could become were merging in powerful ways. But lingering threads of doubt still wove through her victory, whispering that this was just another step in a much longer journey. As she stepped off the mat, her breath steadying and thoughts aligning, Jasmine knew she stood at a crossroads. Would she continue to embrace the tension between doubt and determination, or would she shy away from the deeper challenges awaiting her? The stakes were higher than ever, and the next chapter in her evolution as a fighter loomed darkly ahead, a challenge she was now ready to confront. The exhilaration of stepping off the mat began to fade, replaced by an internal hum of contemplation. Jasmine wandered through the crowded halls, her thoughts flickering between elation and uncertainty. Victory, while sweet, had created a ripple of expectations that danced at the edges of her consciousness. Each cheer from the crowd now echoed with a question she struggled to answer. What does success truly mean to her? As she passed the training area, glimpses of her teammates grappling brought a piece of her back to the mat. Each of them represented a facet of her journey, a united adversary in personal growth. Could she channel the lessons she'd learned from competition into the daily grind of training? The idea lingered heavily in her thoughts as she seated herself on the edge of a bench, breathing deeply. Soon after settling, Jasmine spotted Marcus, her coach, who had been watching the match closely from the sidelines. His expression conveyed pride, but also something more, a teacher's yearning to extract deeper lessons from a fight well fought. As she approached him, she sensed the weight of an important conversation looming. "Jasmine," he began, his voice steady and measured, "you've made incredible progress, but I think we need to talk." The sincerity of his words made her pulse quicken. "About the match?" she ventured, braced for a critique that might expose her flaws. "It's not just about the match, it's about your next steps. You're starting to understand the physical aspects, but now we need to sharpen your mental game. Winning isn't merely a destination, it's a mindset, a way of seeing the world." Marcus's words struck at her core, revealing an unsettling truth. Each bout may have addressed her physical challenges, but they had barely scratched the surface of her psychological patterns. Success had become a temporary mask, revealing insecurities rather than extinguishing them. "What part of my mind do I need to sharpen?" she asked, curious yet apprehensive. "Your self-critique," he responded, his gaze piercing. "You put immense pressure on yourself to succeed. Embrace every flaw that you see. There are opportunities for growth. But a knife also needs to be honed before it can cut." Jasmine shifted uncomfortably, grappling with the unsettling notion that her past insecurities weren't mere whispers. They were the roots of her self-doubt, unchallenged assumptions that needed uprooting. Could she recalibrate her understanding of precision beyond physical moves to include emotional fortitude? "I've been so focused on technique and winning that I haven't thought about how I relate to my journey," Jasmine admitted, frustration mounting within her. "Maybe I'm going about this all wrong." Marcus smiled softly. "You've already recognized it. That's progress. Now the question is, how do you want to confront it?" The enormity of his question settled in, reverberating within her thoughts. She didn't want to just continue facing challenges. She wanted to thrive through them. What if self-acceptance led to deeper resilience? Could her internal dialogue, once riddled with limits, transform into affirmations that catalyzed growth? Suddenly her mind raced with potential strategies, a new pathway unfurling before her. Jasmine envisioned crafting daily affirmations that aligned her skills with her evolving self, a blend of her newfound confidence and a commitment to personal mastery. "All right," she breathed, her voice firm and resolute. "Let's refine my training. I want to do the mental work." "Well then," Marcus said, smiling, "it's time to explore a new training regimen, one that includes visualization, meditation, and proper reflection on each practice. Where there's intention, there's growth." In that moment, the air crackled with possibility, but a nagging question loomed. Would this mental fortification be enough to stave off the remnants of self-doubt? The stakes were higher, united with a newfound clarity, yet shadowed by uncertainty. Jasmine wondered how much deeper the journey would take her, and who she would discover in the process. As she invigorated the session with her mental recalibrations in mind, she was left pondering a new direction, a fusion of physical prowess and mental depth. But lurking in the corners of her thoughts was an echo of Marcus's words, a proposal about the greater challenges that would require all she had just begun to cultivate. What awaited her in the competitive sphere was more than mere opponents. It was the ultimate test of her resilience in nurturing a warrior's heart. And there, standing between doubt and determination, Jasmine felt the rush of curiosity ignite anew. What would it mean to not just face her fears, but to conquer them? Jasmine stepped back onto the mat the following day, the scent of sweat and determination buzzing in the air. The usual clamor of her teammates felt different now, as if each voice resonated with whispers of aspiration and challenge. The session was not just practice, it was a sphere of potential growth, an internal battle she was ready to engage in with newfound vigor. She looked around at the familiar faces, each one embodying a fragment of her journey. The fear of failure that once gripped her heart was now slowly being swept aside by a burgeoning excitement for what lay ahead. Marcus's words echoed in her mind, amplifying her resolve. The mental game awaited her, and she was eager to rise to the occasion. As she began her warm-up, she pushed aside lingering doubts, recalling her commitment to daily affirmations. Maybe today would also be about integrating her mental exercises into physical practice. Jasmine focused on her breathing, grounding herself in the moment while slowly embracing an honest familiarity with her capabilities. Each stretch became a reminder of the power she possessed, not only in her limbs, but within her thoughts. During the grappling drills, she intertwined visualization into her movements. As she partnered with a teammate, Alex, she imagined each twist and throw not just as a display of strength, but as a dialogue between her body and mind. She visualized overcoming anxiety with every maneuver, transforming what could have been an overwhelming thrust of fear into a graceful dance of confidence. "Nice transition!" Alex called out, breaking Jasmine's concentration. "Thanks," she replied, the words soaring from her lips. There was a warmth in her chest, a burgeoning sense of affirmation blooming with every compliment. Each round, she kept pushing herself, feeling the high energy of not only surviving the demands of her training, but actively redefining success. With each takedown, she quietly repeated phrases like, "I am capable," and "every failure is a stepping stone," anchoring herself in a reality of optimistic persistence. This mental recalibration was just as physically exhausting as training itself. Midway through the session, Marcus called everyone together for feedback. Jasmine's heart raced as he addressed the group, eager to dissect not just physical techniques, but also the mental approaches taken during the practice. "Today, I saw many of you enhancing your gameplay with emotional awareness. It's essential. You must engage with both your body and your mind. Remember, grappling is just as much about your mental resilience as it is about your physical technique." His gaze landed on Jasmine, a knowing look that clung to her. She felt exposed, yet empowered. She had begun to embody his messages. After the group feedback, Marcus approached her directly. "I noticed a shift in your approach today. How do you feel?" Jasmine's heart swelled. "I feel like the affirmations are working. I'm looking beyond just winning or losing. It feels like true growth, like it's about mastering myself more than anything else." "We'll take this into the next level," he said thoughtfully. "Next week we'll spar with newer challenges, different styles against unexpected opponents. It demands a sharper mind. You'll need to tap into everything you've honed so far. Trust yourself." Those words hung in the air, a salve and a challenge. As she reflected on this new challenge, Jasmine suddenly found herself confronting an uncomfortable reality. What if all this preparation still wasn't enough? What if her self-doubt surged back in the heat of competition? She quelled the thought, steeling her mind against the creeping shadow of concern. With the weight of expectation tightening around her, Jasmine realized that embracing this next bout of uncertainty could provide one of two journeys, an awakening or a validation of her deepest fears. What lay ahead would demand all she had begun to cultivate. As Jasmine fueled her inner fire, a new question arose. Could she summon the courage to confront not only her opponents, but the self-imposed limits that had held her captive for so long? A daunting but electrifying realization settled in. As the mat gleamed invitingly beneath her feet, its surface ready to test her newfound resolve. In a world where she fought not only for victory, but for a deeper understanding of her own spirit, Jasmine's journey was elegantly poised at the edge of revelation. Would she emerge enlightened, or would failure, once feared, forge a path to liberation? Jasmine entered the gym for another training session, the pulsing energy of the space flooding her senses. Today wasn't just about routine. It was another chance to confront her mental and physical limitations head-on. The upcoming sparring matches loomed larger than ever on her horizon, and she felt as if today would lay the groundwork for her performance. She couldn't ignore the flutter of nerves churning in her stomach. Instead of seeking to suppress them, she embraced that anxiety as a worthy adversary. It reminded her that she was stepping into uncharted territory, ready to seek victories beyond mere outcomes. Jasmine made a mental note: acknowledge the nerves, but let them fuel her, not suffocate her. The familiar faces of her teammates from the previous day carried forward a shared sentiment of anticipation. However, today, Jasmine felt a new weight of acknowledgement in the way they looked at her. There was a budding respect for her visible transformation. She recognized it wasn't merely a physical shift, but a psychological evolution, a metamorphosis from self-doubt to burgeoning confidence. During warm-up, she vividly recalled the mantra Marcus had encouraged them to embody: trust the process. Each repetition of her stretches ushered in thoughts of how her past failures were simply chapters in a larger narrative. After months of training, her body had become a powerful expression of her determination, and she intended to harness that strength today. As they transitioned into drills, today felt pivotal. With every partner exchange, Jasmine leaned into her visualization exercises more deeply. She pictured herself standing tall against more experienced opponents, and the self-doubt that had once festered now flickered like a flame, even transforming into a fierce resolve. When her time came to grapple with Olivia, a competitive powerhouse known for her raw talent, Jasmine sensed the magnitude of the moment. The bell rang, and immediately the air thickened with tension. This was no longer just friendly practice. It felt like a trial of everything she'd learned so far. Olivia charged, and the initial clash was jarring. Jasmine instinctively shifted, recalling Marcus's emphasis on adaptability. Every opponent presents a unique puzzle. She used Olivia's momentum against her, slipping into a defensive stance and countering with precision. Yet in the heat of battle, her mind wavered. A haunting whisper of self-doubt threatened to drown her. What if I can't keep up? Yet in that pause, a moment of clarity struck. This doubt was a signal. Instead of spiraling, she clenched her jaw and focused on every calculated move. Breathe, she reminded herself, feeling the push and pull of both fear and exhilaration. She anchored her moment with a reminder of her commitment to growth. Every failure is a stepping stone. As the spar continued, Jasmine felt an exhilarating sense of flow. Each takedown, every reversal, became a testament to her resilience. It wasn't just about winning. It was about pushing her psychological boundaries, about redefining success on her terms. When the round concluded, both she and Olivia fell back, panting but exhilarated. As Marcus offered his feedback, Jasmine hung on every word as he pointedly commented on her mental engagement throughout the match. Your awareness and adaptability today showcased a significant development, Marcus said. Now let's see how you harness that under pressure. The validation swept through her with refreshing clarity, yet the residual anxiety lingered, creeping in like shadows on the wall. What if she stumbled under real pressure? The mere thought sent a shiver through her. Jasmine felt an instinctive urge to prepare. A deep drive festered now, compelling her to transform this fleeting apprehension into an undeniable momentum for growth. Would she be bold enough to confront the tremors of doubt that reared their heads as the date of the sparring drawn near? This time, the realization settled deeper. Her journey wasn't merely about the outcome, it was about layering courage into her being. Facing the adrenaline of fear had become as crucial as facing her opponents. As she stepped off the mat, an unwavering spark ignited within her. But all at once, she grappled with a question that stirred her very core. How would she harness this newfound disparity between anxiety and confidence in the upcoming face-off? The convergence of those moments would soon lead her to unprecedented discoveries within herself. Jasmine stood at the edge of the mat, heart racing as she prepared for the final match of the tournament. In the weeks leading up to this pivotal moment, she had transformed in ways she never thought possible. Gone were the remnants of self-doubt that had plagued her for so long. With each passing day, she had sharpened her skills, honed her mindset, and fostered the realization that her worth extended beyond mere victories. The arena buzzed with anticipation. But within, Jasmine found a sanctuary of resolve. She had faced opponents far more formidable than her over the past few weeks. She had confronted the very essence of who she was. By embracing her insecurities, she had transmuted fear into resolve. And with that confidence arose an undeniable power. Today was not simply about winning. It was about solidifying her place not only as a competitor, but as an unapologetic champion of her own narrative. As she stepped onto the mat, the roar of the crowd receded into a soothing hum. She felt the heat of the spotlight envelop her like a cloak, yet it was a source of warmth, not pressure. Her opponent was a seasoned fighter, adorned with accolades and respected throughout the circuit. Yet Jasmine was determined to prove that her growth transcended both physicality and the arena's superficial judgments. The whistle blew, and for a brief moment time stood still. In those seconds, Jasmine drew upon her mental preparation, remembering her coach's words to perform not only the dance of combat, but to embody the fighter she had become. She lunged forward, striking first with intent. The movements flowed from her as if choreographed, a culmination of every drill, every breath, every ounce of resilience she had tapped into over the months. But as the match unfolded, her opponent countered with impressive technique. Jasmine found herself momentarily pinned, wrestling with not only her adversary, but also the razor's edge of doubt that threatened to creep back in. Yet this time, the doubt wasn't a cage, it was a doorway. Jasmine inhaled deeply, encompassing the full weight of her journey. She had fought too hard to let fear define her. She had faced countless battles, both internal and external, to reclaim her strength. With a swift movement, Jasmine bucked her opponent off balance, flipping her grip into a reversal. The surge of adrenaline electrified her, pushing back against the weight of expectations. The crowd's cheers ignited her spirit. Each successful maneuver became a testament to her hard-won growth. She wasn't merely competing, she was performing a narrative that combined hard work, mental acuity, and newfound self-belief. In a pivotal moment, Jasmine locked eyes with her opponent, and it wasn't merely a clash of bodies, it was a convergence of two journeys, two women who defined strength in their unique ways. As she regained dominance, Jasmine felt invincible. The hours on the mats, the mental struggles, and the affirmations of her identity culminated in a fierce resolve to not only win, but to truly own her place as a warrior. Finally, with a decisive maneuver, Jasmine pinned her opponent to the mat. The referee's whistle blew, echoing in her ears as a declaration of her triumph. The crowd erupted in applause, but Jasmine barely registered the external validation. Her victory was personal. For the first time, she felt not just acknowledged as a fighter, but embraced as a champion of her own life. When the coach congratulated her, pride swelling in his eyes, Jasmine realized that this moment wasn't about accolades. It was about authentic power. The narrative she was empowered to craft was not merely one of overcoming obstacles, but of transformation. She had conquered her doubts, she had developed resilience, and she had transformed into a force worthy of recognition. This was the manifestation of her struggle, a journey that was defined by perseverance over pressure. As she stepped off the mat, basking in the glow of her achievement, a profound sense of fulfillment enveloped her. The transformation she had undergone was official. Jasmine celebrated not just a victory on the mat, but an internal recognition that she indeed belonged. Her previous battles were stepped stones paving her journey to identity. not just as a fighter, but as an empowered woman eager to write the next chapter of her life with unyielding strength. This was her moment, and she was ready for more. Now, if you resonate with Jasmine's incredible journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more inspiring tales come your way. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Jasmine's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is vital for bringing these powerful narratives to life.